Jim's foot remained glued to the gas pedal, the engine howling as the car tore through the streets of Los Angeles. His eyes were fixed on the road ahead, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. The wild thrill of the chase had vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating urgency. He drove like a man possessed, weaving in and out of lanes, narrowly missing other cars as they hurtled forward. Jocelyn was still reeling in the passenger seat, her heart pounding in her chest. The impact of what they'd just done still felt like a weight pressing down on her lungs, stealing the air from her. She glanced over at Jim, his jaw clenched, eyes hard. He hadn't said a word since the accident, and the silence between them was suffocating. She could feel the terror rising in her, a gnawing sense that they'd crossed a line they couldn't come back from. What had she done? The thought echoed in her mind, mingling with the memory of the body crumpling under the headlights. It wasn't just the victim she couldn't shake. It was what she had chosen to ignore in that moment. She'd sat there, frozen, silent, complicit. Was that her too? Jim, what are we going to do? She finally managed to ask, her voice shaky. Jim didn't answer immediately. His mind was racing, calculating their next move. He knew they couldn't stop, couldn't afford to be caught. They had to get as far away as possible, as fast as possible. His grip tightened, the leather of the steering wheel creaking under the pressure. But his eyes flickered to the rearview mirror, distant, unfocused, as if he'd briefly left the car entirely. "Keep quiet," he finally muttered, his voice devoid of emotion. "We'll figure it out." Meanwhile, back at the scene of the accident, the night was pierced by the flashing red and blue lights of police cars. Officers had arrived within minutes, the call of a hit-and-run echoing over their radios. The scene was chaotic. Shattered glass and debris littered the road, the mangled body of the pedestrian lying motionless under the harsh glare of the headlights. Detective Linda Cortez stepped out of her unmarked car, her expression grim as she surveyed the scene. She was a seasoned detective, tough as nails and sharp as a tack, with a reputation for getting the job done. But this was bad. She approached the officers already on the scene, her eyes narrowing as she took in the details. The victim had no ID, just a crumpled figure on the pavement, their life snuffed out in an instant. The skid marks on the road told the story of a car that had been going too fast, too recklessly. "What do we have?" she asked one of the officers, her voice all business. "Hit and run," the officer replied, shaking his head. "Witnesses say the car came out of nowhere, didn't even try to stop." Detective Cortez sighed, glancing down the road where the car had sped away. The chances of finding the driver weren't great, but she wasn't one to give up easily. Her eyes tracked the trajectory of the skid marks, deep, long, and urgent. Whoever had done this was running, scared, and trying to outrun something they couldn't escape. It was that desperation that would get them caught. "Get a description out to all units," she ordered. "We need to find that car." As the officers scrambled to follow her commands, Detective Cortez took a moment to kneel by the victim, her heart heavy. She could already feel the weight of the case settling in her chest. Whoever had done this was still out there, speeding through the streets like a ghost. But she'd make sure they didn't stay that way for long. Back in the car, Jim's eyes flickered to the rearview mirror again, watching for any signs of pursuit. His focus was unbroken, but there was a subtle shift in his posture, like a slight, involuntary shudder rippling through his body. He wasn't as detached as he wanted to seem. Not yet. He knew they didn't have much time before the police would be on their tail. He needed a plan, and fast. Jocelyn, still shaken, looked out the window at the blur of the city passing by. The reality of what they had done was starting to sink in. and she felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. She glanced at Jim again, his face a mask of cold calculation, but something in his eyes seemed off now, distant, like he was already somewhere else. She could feel the trembling knot in her chest tighten. This isn't just a thrill anymore. This is real. Jim, she said softly, her voice trembling. We can't run forever. He didn't respond, his mind too focused on the road ahead. But deep down, he knew she was right. They were running on borrowed time, and sooner or later, they'd have to face the consequences of their actions. And for the first time, Jim wasn't sure if running was even enough. But the truth was, they both knew that the real cost of what had just happened was yet to be revealed.